Hi, my name's Louise and welcome to the Enygma Within. This is the first ever episode that I'm going to be posting and I'm super excited to be making this. It's something I've wanted to do for years, and I guess the only thing that's ever stopped me is being scared of doing it, but I don't need to do that anymore. So what we're going to be doing today in this first episode is I'm going to just be introducing myself, telling you who I am, why I'm doing this, and just a little bit about me basically, so you know why. Then I'm going to be talking about some different theories of crimes because they're quite interesting, and I thought it'd be a really good way to start a podcast where I'm talking about a lot of crime and paranormal and stuff. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So this is the Enigma Within, where we talk about true crime, paranormal and creepy stories. Yeah, let's get into it. So a little bit about me first. My name's Louise. I am a high school teacher. So that's like my day-to-day job. I teach high school. In that school I teach psychology, criminology and RE, like do a little bit of a mix there. But my main speciality, so my degree is in criminology. So I do have a criminology degree. So I am somewhat qualified to be talking about what I'm talking about. And I just find crime really interesting, in the sense of that morbid curiosity where I want to know why these things have happened. Why do people commit crimes? That's the big question I wanted to answer at some point in my life. Why do people commit crimes? Now, I don't think we'll ever actually know an answer to why people commit crimes, but I would love to know the answer. So that's like my main interest. Why do people do what they do? Why is there so many serial killers who are going out there murdering people in the world? Why does that happen? Why do people see ghosts? Why are there so many ghost stories? Why does all of this happen? Why do our brains work that way? And that's basically what this podcast is going to be, me talking about all of these different crimes, different stories of ghosts and paranormal, and try and figure out why, I guess. And it'll just be me rambling about why I think all of these things have happened. But that's a little bit about me, I guess, talking about why I think all of this has happened. And, you know, I just want to know. I don't think I'll ever know, but we can try together. Like I said, I have a degree in criminology, so I did my degree at Keele University. I did my dissertation in cybercrime, which is really interesting. If you want me to talk about cybercrime too, let me know. But I did my dissertation in cybercrime and why cybercrime is so underdeveloped and why there needs to be more people talking about it. And I got a first. So we're happy with that. But let's have a little talk about some of the theories of crime. So why are there so many different theories to why people commit crime? Now, just so you know, if I keep looking in this direction, I have like a list, like some bullet points of things that I want to talk about, just to make sure I don't miss anything. So if you see me glancing over, it's to make sure I'm not missing anything out. So there are so many different theories as to why people commit crimes. Some of those theories are really strange. And some of them you see all of the time, you see everywhere, you've probably heard of them. And there is so many in different true crime shows in different areas of that true crime community. So I want to talk about one of my favourite theories. And now this is not my favourite in the sense of I think it's a really good theory. I think it is one of the worst theories that ever exists. But it's my favourite because people, every time I tell them, they're like, what? And that's the only reason it's my favourite, because of people's reactions to the theory. I do not think it's a good theory. It is racist. It is terrible. But people's reactions make it so much more interesting, just to put that out there. And I just think it's hilarious that people think this is the answer to crime, or at least back in the 18 to 1900s. And by 1900s I mean, like, I need to fact check myself on those dates actually. Let me fact check myself. It was developed in the 1870s. The 1870s, it was used up until very early on in the 1900s. So a very old theory, which makes it a bit more understandable. Cesare Lombroso was an Italian criminologist and is known as the father of modern criminology because he was the first person to ever believe that crime is not because of demons and possessions. We're off to a good start. He proposed that people are criminals because they were born that way, and they were born with specific traits and features which manifested in the way that they looked. So you can kind of see where it's going when I say it's racist. Lombroso believed that criminals had what he called atavistic features, which means that they are evolutionary throwbacks to an earlier, more primitive stage of human development. So he's saying that they are biologically, literally different from us. They're a different form of evolution. And he stated that these criminals had a certain look about them. So they would have different features to that of a normal human. So they'd have high cheekbones, large eye sockets, prominent jawlines. And he even connected some of these features to specific crimes. So thieves would have flat noses and murderers would have pointed noses, which I'll insert images of all of these, by the way, if you're watching the video version of this. And I think this is like my favourite part of his theory. He said that if you have tattoos, so if you can get a tattoo, if you have a tattoo, you're criminal because you have a higher pain tolerance, so you don't feel pain as much, which is why you're able to get tattoos, therefore criminal. So I guess I'm a criminal. You're a criminal if you have tattoos, according to Lombroso. His theory is largely discredited. There are definitely some criminals, I will say, when I have taught this in criminology at work, there are definitely some who fit this theory. So there are definitely some people who have atavistic form, and I'm sorry to say that, like I don't believe in the theory, but there are some people who fit it. So for example, your prominent jawline, Fred West. He's got such a prominent jawline in that sense. It fits perfectly. Facial asymmetry, I don't think anybody has a symmetrical face, so that one's kind of a bit unfair. But your, for example, pointed nose, if you look at Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, they have that pointed nose. I'll put a couple of pictures up so you can see what I mean. But there are definitely a few people who fit that theory, as painful as it is for me to say that. Not saying there's any truth to it, I just think it's kind of funny to link some of them together. So as I've said, his theory was largely discredited. I mean, you've got to think he was racist. The methodology that he used to actually research this theory was basically looking at criminals. So he only looked at criminals or people who were like antisocial to measure them. And not all of them fit. He admitted that himself, not all of them fit, but a good percentage of them did. And he also used dead bodies. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked at a dead body. I've never seen a dead body, but I know for a fact they do not look like alive ones. Your skin sinks in, your eyes sink into your head. Like, you know, you don't look the same dead as you do alive. That's why you have morticians who do their job to make you look like you looked when you were alive. That's why they do that. So his theory is based on, it's just terrible. But Lombroso's theory led to so many more theories. So you've got Sheldon, who looked at semantotypes, which he suggests it's your body type that leads you to being criminal. And then this led to even more biological and genetic theories. So as terrible as Lombroso's theory is, it led to some actual credible theories that we use today. So another one, well, this one's my favourite because it's actually a good one. Like, this is a good favourite of mine, is the MAOA gene. There's quite a lot of research that has been done on the MAOA gene, and there is quite a lot of credibility to it, to an extent. Obviously, this does not apply to everybody who is a criminal. Myelamine oxidase A, or MAOA. It's a gene that essentially encodes the enzymes that are responsible for the breakdown of dopamine, serotonin, and noradrenaline. So all of those things that make your brain happy and good, and the good chemicals, you need these. And low activity from this gene has been linked to aggression and violence because these individuals are hypersensitive, so they're more likely to just react to emotions. And although it has evidence, of course, there are people who have this gene who are not violent, who are not, you know, acting in a criminal way. They can just go about their normal daily lives. And because of this, they have linked the MAOA gene to childhood trauma, saying that it must have like something that triggers this gene to cause people to be criminal. So they do believe that this gene has to be triggered by some form of childhood abuse or mistreatment as a child, which is what causes that violence. It is, however, only estimated that about 33% of the population, at least in the UK, and again, estimated, there is no actual data on this, to have this gene. But a study in 2002, Catsby, found that 12% of men with low activity with their gene and childhood abuse were responsible for about 44% of crimes, and those who had the genetic and environmental factor had about 85% of them antisocial behaviour. So there is really something in this theory. There is quite a lot that links to it that says, yeah, it's a good theory. Now, of course, there are hundreds upon thousands of theories as to why people might commit crimes. And I really don't think that there is just one reason. I think it's going to be an amalgamation of the reasons. I think so many of these theories are credible that it's got to be more than one of them. You can't just say this is the only one that's true. But I mean, there is a whole theory that suggests that people wouldn't commit crimes if there were no laws. Which, yes, that's a real theory. Because obviously, if you commit a crime but there's no laws, then it's not actually a crime because it's not illegal. But they believe that people wouldn't do the crimes because there are no boundaries to press against. So there's no point in murdering someone if there's no consequence for doing so, is essentially what this theory is saying. There's no point in stealing something if there is no punishment for doing so. It's an interesting theory. I don't want to test it. I wouldn't want that to be real. It's basically the purge. And I just don't think that's a good idea to test, to be honest. But I don't think there'll ever be like a one-size-fits-all solution to this. And, you know, I think it's really interesting to learn about and really interesting to research, because you can like look and link these to real crimes, which when I talk about the crime side of it and not the paranormal, I will be linking to it. And I will link some psychology stuff to the paranormal side to see, you know, if we can like debunk some of them. I guess it'll be quite interesting to see. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this yapping of me introducing my podcast. You know, I'll have guests on, and by guests I just mean my friends who will join. I will definitely be asking my mother to come on at some point because she is a true crime fanatic, and we have some good debates about our opinions on different murderers, so I think that'll be interesting to bring to it at some point too. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this introduction. It is just an introduction. This is just me yapping about some of the stuff I'm interested in, to be honest. The other episodes will be a bit more structured and talking about crimes properly, you know, linking some theories to it. And the key thing that I want to bring with this, which I know some true crime podcasts do this, but not all of them do, but when I talk about the crime side of it, my focus is going to be on the victims, because I think that a lot of the times victims go forgotten. But I want to bring forward the victims and remembering what happened to them. And I just think, as interested as I am in the why, I still think that that's something that goes underrepresented, and I'm hoping to bring that to my podcast. But I hope you enjoyed this video, or this podcast if you're listening elsewhere, which I don't feel like many people will be, but it is on Spotify and Apple and all of those places where you get podcasts. So I do hope that you enjoy this, and I will be uploading weekly, yapping about all of these different things. And if you enjoyed, don't forget to like, rate, comment, subscribe, all of the things that you have to do depending on where you're listening to this. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.